This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Daniel Greenfield moment of the Glazov Gang. Today I'm going to talk about nuclear war. We just had one of those in the Senate, and the result of the nuclear war is that the filibuster is no more. That's right. If you grew up as a little boy or a little girl one day dreaming of being elected to the United States Senate, where you could actually get up just like Jimmy Stewart, just hold forth, reading through every single thing in the dictionary, then reading through anything, any novels you remembered, the catalog, the phone book, just to keep a bad piece of legislation from getting through. The filibuster is no more. Of course, it had been no more since the Harry Reid days, but that's not how the media is portraying it. Now, I'm not going to talk at length about the filibuster because that itself would be filibustering. Instead, I'm going to talk about what is really going on here. Why did the Democrats get to this point? By now, certainly Charlie Shillman, who's a shrewd operator, understood quite well that the Republicans would not simply just back off and allow him to pick Supreme Court justices. There's a Republican in the White House, there's a Republican majority in the Senate and the House, which means Republicans do get to pick Supreme Court justices. So what exactly went on here? Why did the Democrats push it to the point that the Republicans would have no choice but to push the button, pull the trigger, and set off the big nuclear bomb in the Senate? There's actually a very simple answer if you understand the long game that is being played. Now, you hear a lot of talk about resistance. What does resistance actually mean? It doesn't just mean a few people showing up at airports and waving protest signs or announcing on Twitter that they're going to delete Uber because Uber was actually daring to pick up passengers at JFK during a fake taxi strike. That's not what it is. And by the way, none of those people actually deleted Uber. They just kept right on using Uber the next time they were stuck somewhere and needed a ride. And the Lyft only had 2 drivers. But what is all this really about? When you have the entire model of the resistance, what that means is you fundamentally shifted perceptions. You're no longer talking about being an opposition party. An opposition party is when there's a government, you disagree with the government, and you try to oppose it. You propose your own measures when their measures come up. You argue against their measures. But when you have the resistance, you're declaring that the elected government is illegitimate, that they have to be blocked by any means necessary, and that they have to be removed from power by any means necessary. And then the run-up to the entire Supreme Court Senate nuclear button debate, Senator Richard Blumenthal, that great Vietnam War hero who was never in Vietnam, said that effectively he admitted what Ivan was saying, which is that it's not about the actual nominee, it's about Trump. President Trump is illegitimate. He can face a constitutional crisis. He should not be allowed to appoint a Supreme Court justice. The practical implications of that is that it's not about the specific nominee. It's about the simple fact that Trump had put him forward. And that means the President of the United States should not be allowed to appoint a Supreme Court justice. Obviously, this sounds a bit insane, but follow me here. After Bush won, the Democrats insisted that he had not really won the election. A majority of those polled a year later actually insisted that Bush had actually stolen the election. Around a quarter said that they would not accept him no matter what. Effectively, they were declaring that the results of a presidential election had been null and void. Something very similar happened now with Trump. And so this means that it's been twice now that Democrats have reacted to the results of a presidential election by saying, no, we reject these results, we're not going to respect those results, and we're going to boycott them and fight them any possible way we can. There's an obvious problem here, which is that at that point you're no longer the opposition party. When you reject the outcome of a democratic election, you're not an opposition party, you're an insurrection, you're a rebellion, you're traitors, you could use whatever language you like, but at the end of the day, you're not an opposition party at that point. You're, as they want to call themselves now, a resistance, which means the United States has been illegally occupied by the FBI and by Russian hackers and whatever other excuse of the month they've come up with. During Bush, it was the Supreme Court and Jeb Bush. Now there's a new roster of excuses. Whatever third or fourth Republican wins a presidential election this century, you can be certain that the results will be declared null and void, that the left and the Democrats, and the two are increasingly indistinguishable, are going to insist that the election is illegitimate, that the president number 3, whoever he might be, Republican president number 3, was now legitimately elected, does not have to be obeyed, that his Supreme Court justices should not get a vote, etc., so on and so forth. Obviously, a two-party system cannot run this way, and again, that is the objective, that is the end game here. The end game here is to actually prevent the United States government from functioning, to view the United States government as illegitimate, because this is not really about Trump, just as it wasn't really about Bush. It's about the contention that the United States has to function under ideological authority, specifically under the ideological authority of the left. That if it deviates from the ideological authority of the left, that it has no right. So, on the conservative side and the Republican side, authority is vested in the Constitution. This used to be a universal position. Democrats might have different ideas about it, but both sides respected the Constitution of the United States. They said that we are a particular system of government that's based on laws. As the left began taking over the Democratic Party, we were no longer a system based on laws. We were no longer a system based on the Constitution. The Constitution didn't matter. What mattered was social justice. What mattered was allegiance to an ideology. And this is now how the Democratic Party operates. Trump, Bush, any Republican that gets elected is by definition illegitimate because they're not a candidate of the left, and their allegiance is to the left. Now, what does the left do? You have the more moderate left, and you have the radical left. Now, the distinction between the two is not about the end game. So when Wells met Lenin, they would agree on a lot of the objectives, which is socialism, which is very little personal freedom, and a great deal of government intervention, and the government big enough to give you everything you could want and to take away everything you want. That's the end game. The run-up to it is a question of tactics. So Lenin obviously favored violent overthrow, seize the telegraphs and the banks, and I forget the third thing he agitated for, take a bunch of hostages, shoot your way to power, kill your way to power. The more moderate approach is that you work within the system, you burrow within the system, you work from inside it, and you transform the system by going inside the system. This is the moderate position. This is where we distinguish between the moderate and the radical left. So now the Democrats are switching between the moderate side, which was we're going to get elected to office and we're going to change things. We're going to violate the Constitution, obviously, but we're going to do it from within the system, as opposed to the radical approach, which is to delegitimize the entire system. Now, for a while now, there's always been a hybrid approach because you have the people's history of the United States being there in schools, and you have the contention that America is racist and therefore illegitimate. But at the same time, this was backed by working from within the system. Now the radical left is increasingly functioning outside the system. It's stepping outside the system. It's saying that the entire system is illegitimate. What happened when Trump won? The left began insisting the Electoral College is illegitimate. If the Electoral College is illegitimate, what's the next step? The United States Senate is now illegitimate. Those are the fun lefty think pieces that are now making the rounds. So you have Think Progress saying that the United States Senate is a failed institution. Of course, like the rest of the United States government, the presidency, the Congress, the Constitution, they're all failed institutions which need to be replaced by something more. Now, when the Democrats have gotten on board this, the Democrats had already been taken over by the left, but they're now moving over to the radical left. From the radical left's perspective, there are three goals. One, you delegitimize the system. They're obviously doing that, and the attacks on Trump and Bush aren't just attacks on the individuals, they're not just attacks on the Republicans, they're attacks on the system of government itself. When they forced Republicans to pull the trigger on the nuclear filibuster, the practical end result of this is you eliminate any possibility of bipartisanship. You make it really, really difficult for Republicans and Democrats to coordinate on anything. You're effectively saying that government will be via a one-party system. It's not going to be a bipartisan. It's not going to be a two-party system. Now, this is what political extremists want. They want to eliminate any kind of censor. They want to eliminate any kind of moderation. They want to force a system in which only a dictator and a one-party state can get anything done. This is what they're trying to accomplish. At the same time, they're using this kind of polarization to discredit the system. This is the same reason why they're pushing the constant claims that Trump is going to be impeached, that Mike Pence is going to step in with the 25th Amendment. Now, some of this is clickbait, but they actually do believe some of this. But the people at the top who are pushing this message understand this is not actually going to happen. What they want to do is destroy faith and confidence from the people who are their natural base in the system. They want to set this up for them, the promise that the system is going to remove Trump, and then they're going to show, no, the system can't do it, because the system itself is completely and utterly worthless and needs to be replaced. This is the position of the radical left, and unfortunately, this is where we are now. Democrats aren't just nuking the filibuster, they're doing their best to nuke the United States government. Thank you very much for listening. This has been the Daniel Greenfield Moment. If you'd like to support the Glazov Gang, subscribe to its YouTube channel, and feel free to donate to help out and help keep things going. Have a very good night, or a good morning, or a good afternoon, wherever you are. And thanks for listening.